Almost everyone, you probably included, gets creativity completely backwards. Ever wonder why you get so many of your good ideas when you're like just about to fall asleep or you're in the shower? I'm sure you know the pain of being stuck here, staring at a blank page or a blank canvas, or standing like a twit in the street with all of your camera gear and no ideas. My name's Hunter. I'm a photographer, videographer, creative Swiss Army knife. Being able to come up with a lot of ideas all the time is a critical part of my job. It's so important that I had to reverse engineer creativity, figure out what's going on under the hood, and create a system so that we never have to worry about that horrible, horrible blank page feeling. In this video, I'm going to give it to you. So lots of people think that they aren't creative and that you kind of have to be born creative, and some people just aren't naturally creative. Unfortunately, that's probably an excuse. As often is the case, it's just a skill issue. So to become an idea generation machine, first we have to understand how creativity actually works. What creativity is, right, is it's basically using all of the stuff in your brain to make new stuff in your brain. You're using existing ideas to make new ideas, right? And how that works is you've got to let your brain do stuff in the background while you're doing stuff in the foreground. And this is why it's really hard to be creative when you're doing your taxes, because you're using your brain on something that is just horrible and takes up all of your mental horsepower. When you're about to go to sleep or you're in the shower, you're not using any of your mental horsepower. You're running on autopilot, and you've changed your usual state into something that's kind of cozy and relaxing and meditative. This is also why a really good way to come up with great ideas is to go to the gym or go for a jog, because when you're doing those things, your body is running on autopilot, and so is your brain. So without getting too sciencey, because I'm not that guy, your brain has a couple of different bits. There's your conscious, which is like you thinking when you think thoughts in your head. By the way, I can picture a 3D apple floating around. I bet you can't do that. And there's the subconscious, which is exactly what it says on the tin. It's like further back mentally than your forward-thinking self, right? It's where ideas come from. It's where dreams are made. Your subconscious is always running processes in the background, you know, like when your computer slows down because like a vast antivirus is updating, even though viruses haven't been a problem since the mid-2000s. An example of this is like if you're really, really stressed at work and you've got like assignments due and your mum's a little bit annoyed at you because you didn't use the right tea towels, and then you're trying to solve a complicated problem, even though you're not currently thinking about all of those things stressing you out, your subconscious is, and your subconscious is not working on that problem. Here's a fun experiment. I would like you to notice all of the green cars you see tomorrow. Granted, the number of green cars you see will not be any greater than the amount of green cars you usually see, but because I've told you that in the back of your brain, your subconscious will point them out to you and you will go, oh, a green car, just like in that video. How funny. The important takeaway from this conscious subconscious thing is that the ideas most of the time are generated in the subconscious, right? So all we have to do is give our background brain the right information and learn how to harness it. It's also why if you're stuck on a really fiddly problem, sitting there and staring at it often doesn't help. And most of the time, if you go and have dinner, while you're eating your bolognese, you go, oh, why didn't I think of that? Because your subconscious had enough time to work on it. Okay, so now that we kind of understand where creativity comes from, how do we optimize for that? How do we make sure that our subconscious is performing as best it can? Because once we can optimize it, then we can point it in the right direction to get ideas about the specific thing that we need ideas for. Optimization is a little bit, I think, a little bit of a yucky word, okay? Like you kind of optimize everything to a point of like sterile yuckiness. And I'm an artist and I don't like that. I like things to be very unoptimized a lot. Look at my desk. However, there are some things that we can do to make sure that we are giving our background brain the best possible opportunity to give us those $1 million ideas. First one is to cast a wide net. And that's not so you can catch more fish, that's so you can catch different kinds of idea fish. We know that creativity involves smashing a whole bunch of different ideas together to make a new one, and in order to do that, we need lots of existing ideas from all over. Giving yourself a really large sort of background pool of knowledge, not just about the one thing you do. Like if you're a graphic designer, of course, read many, many books on graphic design and logos and typefaces, but also maybe read some fiction and some poetry and go to see some paintings in a museum and look at ceramics and sculpture. And even outside of that, maybe let's look at some engineering stuff, and maybe let's try cooking, and maybe let's try a sport. And all of these things that you would think are completely unrelated will form connections in your subconscious and end up being the things that generate new ideas. So focus on having a well-balanced amount of stuff coming in from all over the place, especially focusing on having novel experiences. The second one is probably the one that I'm worst at the moment, given that I spend a lot of time on the road and moving around, but it's health. I don't want to be like, oh, wake up at 5 a.m. and then get in an ice bath and go stare at the sun and that'll make you 4% more creative, which fact is, if you're stressed, which is a health concern, you can't be creative. That's a scientifically proven fact. Cortisol, the stress one, reduces your creativity. And that makes sense, right? Because our bodies are trying to, first of all, keep us alive. We have to survive before we can thrive, right? And so you need to focus on reducing the stress. If getting up at 5 a.m. and doing a cold plunge does that for you, for me, it means making sure that I've met all of my obligations before I try and come up with ideas. I'm not a psychologist or a stress guy, but less stress equals more creativity. Also, like we talked about before, changing your state to something that's a little more meditative can help. I'm not saying meditate, that's not really my thing, but things that are meditative. For example, I find that when I'm in the dark room developing prints, I get into a very meditative state. When I'm at the gym lifting weights, I get into a meditative state. And when I'm doing street photography, I'm fully in flow and I'm very meditative, even though I'm kind of hyper at the same time. Doing this kind of gives more percentage of your brain power, total brain power, to your subconscious. I don't know the science of it. I don't think anyone knows the science of it. But the fact is, when you're doing something meditative, like sorting out your stamp collection, if that's what does that for you, something happens where you sort of cease to be aware of yourself and what you're doing, and your subconscious takes over. And while you're aware of what you're doing and you're still making decisions, you know what I mean? It's like flow. It happens to me when I race cars. I'm locked in and it feels like I'm not really me. Doing that, sure, if you can get into flow while you're being creative, great, but it's not really the point. What you want to do is give yourself as many opportunities as possible to have that happen in general, because then you're giving more brain horsepower to the subconscious so it can do those background processes and reveal the ideas. And the final, probably the most actionable way we can optimize for creativity in general, again, I'm going to use a sports analogy. It's like weight training, right? We have to do a little bit of cardio. No one wants to. Mentally, what that means is give yourself fun little projects. Yes, you're gonna have the high stakes, very important creative work that you need to do, and it's work that you really care about, and you're gonna have all your friends come over and you've hired a gaffer, or maybe you're a ceramicist and you're going to use this really big kiln and it's a big high stakes thing. You also need to give yourself really low stakes work on a regular basis, and that trains your brain into just spitting out these ideas. So maybe I'm not a fan of the whole journaling thing because I feel really douchey talking about myself. However, get a notebook and write a haiku every day. I'm sorry, it really doesn't get easier than writing a haiku on a daily basis. Or if you're a painter, maybe get a little moleskin pocket notebook and do a little bit of sketching. When you're on the bus, just do a little, giving yourself that low stakes work. It doesn't have to be good. The whole point is it's not supposed to be good. All you're doing is doing the thing to load more stuff into your subconscious, and also it's fun. Right? We're artists, we're supposed to find this fun. And so once we've sort of set our lifestyle up in a way that optimizes for peak creativity, how do we point our subconscious in the right place so that we're not coming up with thousands of app ideas when we're supposed to be making pottery? I call it DM. I didn't mean to come up with that acronym. It just happened to be what it spelled out. And basically, it's a system I've developed in order to churn out cool creative ideas nonstop all the time like a machine. I'm an ideas machine. Step 1, D in the DM, do. You gotta start doing the thing, even just a little bit. And it's like, how can I start before I have the ideas? That's not how it works. The ideas come after you've started. It's horrible, it's cruel, and it's evil, but it's the way it works. If you're sitting and staring at a blank page, write 4 sentences about how breakfast was. I don't care. It doesn't have to be related to what you're doing at all. But what it does is it starts to trigger the background processes related to writing, for example, that your brain has. And once they start rolling, they don't stop. So once you've started, your ideas will start slowly drip feeding to you from your subconscious. You go, maybe I want to write about that. Maybe that's the next chapter. Then the I in DM is ideate. Using ideate in a system about ideas, whatever. This is where you take those little drip feeds of ideas and we just hone in on them a little bit. Here's an example. I've been doing my do, right? Which is just like, I've left the house with a camera. I'm gonna start taking pictures of just anything. And then I go, maybe I wanna take photos of birds or bins or cars, right? And then in the ideate step, what I do is I go, how, why, what if, or how about? And I prompt myself with those questions and I think, how about I do photos of bins, but I do all the different bins I can find? Or how about I write about this particular story beat, but I shift this to give it a little twist? What you'll find is that when you're doing the thing, when you're following the process, these ideas, these what ifs or but how abouts will come to you so much easier than if you just try and think of them without having already been doing the thing. The E in DM stands for evaluate. Which of your ideas is feeling fun or exciting? Which ones are in line with the bigger mission? So for example, if you're writing a book about a pirate who's going to save his mum from a bear, think about which of your what ifs or buts or hows or maybe if we did this, think about those things and which one is most applicable to the overall mission. Once you've done that, you hone on it slightly further, and then here's the really fun part that you're not going to like. The M stands for momentum. Rinse and repeat constantly, like every day. You have to do this a lot. It's just like jogging or going to the gym. Creativity is a muscle, and you have to continue to work a muscle all the time for it to get stronger or you lose it. I can't encourage you enough to try the system out. Give it 30 days and you'll be amazed at how creative you really are. It'll be weird at first and you'll feel like it's not working, but then at some point you'll go, hey, that was actually a pretty good idea. And if you do it for long enough, like me, eventually you'll be in the meeting where the client says, we need to do a TV ad for an accounting software that saves customers time. That's very boring. You're the guy in the meeting who puts his hand up and says, why don't we make a skit where we put an accountant in a Formula One car? I just came up with that right now. I'm on fire, I'm full of them. How do you think I came up with the idea for this video? Every day I sit down for 5 minutes and I come up with ideas for YouTube videos. And I've got hundreds of them and not enough time. If you're a creative professional, you should probably be subscribed to my email list. Great, it's turning into a community, there's back and forth. You can email me, I can email you, we can share work. There's a link in the description. You should also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you for watching, stay hydrated, and create art.